on the previous episode of Ménage À Mind.
He texts me back, I knew you've been sexually abused. Mixing it in with the type of person I am, where I'm open-minded and comfortable with myself, I am literally made for sex.
Black men need to go to therapy. Another headline. Another storyline that I keep seeing everywhere. Black men need to go to therapy. Yes, that's true. But can we also talk about the black men that are going to therapy? Can we take a second to celebrate our brothers and sisters that are going to therapy and doing the work? But before we can say that black men need to go to therapy, we must first understand the challenges that currently exist as to why us black men are not going to therapy as much as our white counterparts. The truth is, on average, there is about 4 to 5% of black therapists in the field of psychology and mental health. And us black men and black women, they are looking for black therapists. There's just not enough of us. About 12% of black Americans are not insured. So they don't even have insurance. And on top of that, most therapists are moving away from insurance. So now the conversation needs to become one about the access that is being given to black men and black women to ensure that they can get the help that they deserve. And we also need to have more black clinicians available to treat those that are in need. Welcome to Ménage À Mind. In this session, we'll be taking a deep dive into the understanding of what it's like to be a black male and a black female therapist, and hear it from outside, the things that we experience, our beautiful stories, how we got here, imposter syndrome as well, because that's a big motherfucker.
It's a big one.
Right? And hear from the therapeutic side what it's like to treat black men and black women. Welcome to Ménage À Mind. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Being a black female therapist, right? When was the first time a colleague of yours made you realize that you was black?
Okay. I think it's hard to pinpoint one specific time because being a black female therapist, I worked in offices where I was the only black female therapist. So I think it's hard I don't think there was ever a time when I didn't realize that I was black and feel the difference in just even the way that they interacted with each other versus me, or comments they would make, about like me being in that space or not expecting me to be in that space, or that thing where people do, it's almost like a shocker, like, oh, good for you, or, that's nice, or things where it's like those little microaggressions that come up that they think are like compliments or things,
right,
but we know are not, and are not helpful. So I think it was a lot of that, or even just being talked to, almost feeling like it to be coddled or questioned in like my decision making or what I thought, or just never really given the same space.
Is being
Exactly. Or thinking like I must not understand or know it. In that sense.
For me, it was October 15th. I'm not remembering the year. It was 7:30 a.m.
Wow.
Parked my car, walked into the establishment, met at the door by a white female therapist that has been there for a number of years. She looked at me and said, "Wow, you dress nice for a black guy."
Wow.
I never forgot that.
Wow.
Never forgot that.
Wow.
And that's where I realized being black is my superpower in this field of social work and therapy.
Well, I had experiences similar like that, where it's like where you get that as black people often, right? We get that, like, you talk well for a black guy. I'm sure you've heard that before. You talk well, I've been told you talk well, or you don't sound like a black girl, or like, oh, you're from Brooklyn, or you don't talk like you're from Brooklyn. And it's like, well, what exactly did you expect me to sound or talk like?
Yeah. And what's amazing is that now that classification in which at first as a therapist in training, I was trying to blur the line and just wanted to be seen as just a therapist.
Of course.
Now I have no problem saying I am a black male therapist. I love
And
it.
I think that change is so good. But for me, that change didn't happen until private practice.
Yeah.
I feel like I struggled to balance that change in those offices because I was, wanting to just be seen as just a therapist. And I felt that in separating myself in that way, it wasn't, not only was it not accepted in that sense, but I just didn't feel like it was something I could do in those spaces. So until I transitioned to private practice, that's when I could really just be able to say, like, I'm a Black female therapist and I want to work exclusively with Black people.
Yeah. I also think that just based on society, like for males, it's okay to take space. Like wherever I am, I take space. I have no issue with that. Like I'm me.
Right.
I'm Mac.
Right.
This is me. This is how I behave. I am not quote unquote professional, but I get my work done.
Right.
My numbers always above everybody else.
Right.
And my engagement with my clients is always top tier. So I had no problem being me. Right. I dress however I want. I'm leaving the office on a Friday at 12, if I even come in. I'm not working till 5.
Right.
I will finish my work day at home. And I had no problem taking space. But that's when I started to realize the responsibility that I had as a Black male therapist that specifically work with couples. And now I exclusively work with mainly Black couples, right? Using the Gottman approach and being trained in that aspect. I know what it's like to walking into these trainings and being the sole Black male therapist in a room of 30 therapists. And all eyes are on you at all times.
Right.
You can't make the wrong move. You can't say the wrong thing, right? You got to be very mindful of how you interact with everybody else because the rules are different for male and women in a workplace.
Right.
Right? So now, like, it's my superpower.
You've used it to your advantage.
Hell yeah.
Which is good.
I love working with Black men. I love working with Black women. I love working with Black couples. My introduction is I am a Black male therapist. I'm not just a therapist. I'm a Black male therapist.
Right. Right.
I love that shit.
It's really a different experience and something that's so different when working with Black people and being able to see that. I had that aha moment several weeks ago. I had a client, I'm virtual. And so during the session, she's like running late. And so throughout the session, like we're talking and I'm telling Stan, she's really like, she's flat ironing her hair. She's beating the face. She's putting the lashes. And inside in that moment, I just felt so good because I said, wow, like what to be able to hold space and that level of comfortability. And the session, we didn't miss a beat, like still doing the work and doing what we need to do. But the fact that she just felt so comfortable, it clicked to me that this is not just something that you could do with any therapist. And it's because that we're able to see each other on a different level that shifts everything.
Yes, it's
and
like
that felt so good to me.
Listen.
I felt so good after that session. I said, wow.
I would walk into my barbershop like, oh my God, the therapist is here. Yo, Mac, I need therapy. Yo, Mac, I need this. Like, it's so amazing how within the Black community, the stigma is being removed so quickly. Right. And we also need to thank Charlemagne the God for that, right? Him continuously talking about the need for therapy, going to therapy, and his mental health alliance as well, right? And it's just some, like even my mom now is in therapy.
That's amazing.
She's a Haitian woman that's 60 years old.
That's amazing.
Finally, she understands what I do.
And isn't that such a moment to feel so proud? Because it's like now, not only are you seeing the stigma changing in society, but we're able to witness it like in our own circles, in family and friend groups. And that's something that's big.
I would say on average, I receive at least one consultation request from a Black male. Like, hey, Mac, I know you primarily work with couples, but I am looking for a Black male therapist and I would love to work with you.
Same.
I have some issues that I'd like to address. I'd like to do the work, or my partner's requiring that I am in therapy and I do the work and I want to get this done.
Right. Same. And so when I first started in private practice, I was seeing mostly women. And then I started to get like requests from men looking for individual therapy. And the first time it was kind of like, oh, this is different. Like, because I don't really always see men in that sense. But the first email I got, I said, there's no way I cannot take this client on. Like, I didn't care where I was going to have to fit him in, because I said, here's a Black man emailing me saying he's been thinking of, therapy for a while, wanting to go, but never actually taking that step. And I can't, a Black female therapist, turn this man down, because
Damn right.
I don't know if he's going to take that step again.
Exactly.
He may use that as like, well, I tried and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did. And so it's not requests that you get as often, for me personally, for individual and Black men. But when you do, I think it's something that's so important. And that relationship that we've been able to build is so good. And I just felt like I had to do it. And I was just really proud of even taking that first step, because that's hard.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we're changing the culture.
I'd say so.
We're breaking generational trauma.
I think so.
We are no longer saying, what do you bring to the table? Instead, we're asking for receipts of your therapeutic process and how you're overcoming your trauma and what your coping mechanisms are.
Exactly.
This is amazing.
Exactly.
I'm proud of us.
I am too. It's like the social media says, therapy is the new flex. Right? That's what.
Therapy is the new flex. I also said the mental health game is the new dope game. Because there's a lot of added parties to the mental health game. And that can also be very detrimental to the mental health process.
I see.
Now, taking several steps back, would you mind introducing yourself to the world? Who are you? What do you do? And why?
Well, Sammy, you heard me with the questions. So, my name is Takira Victorin. I am a Black female therapist.
The Black female therapist. Let's correct ourselves, please.
The Black female therapist.
Okay.
I run a private practice virtually.
Thriving private practice.
I primarily focus in meeting with Black women and men, individuals and couples.
Okay.
And why do I do it?
Yeah, why? Which part of yourself were you trying to heal by becoming a therapist?
Oh boy, maybe all of them in some way, right? Maybe all the parts of me. I feel, it's hard because when people say like, how did you like get into therapy or so? And then sometimes I see this circling social media more recently where it's like, you don't choose to become a therapist. It's almost like a calling in that sense. And at first I read it and I said, a calling, like what, what does that actually mean? I'm not too sure about that. But the more I sit back, it's like, I think it was like, I think I just fell into therapy because it's naturally just like my personality. I think it's some of just like who I am as a person. And I think in healing, I was healing all the parts of me, really. The parts of me as a child that needed to be able to talk to someone else, who needed to feel seen and understood, who needed to discuss like feelings that you were having, right? Like maybe thinking that now I can recognize as maybe that was a bit of anxiety. Maybe there's some imposter syndrome things showing up. But things like in most Black families, can't speak for all, but in mine too, that we don't discuss, right? We just sort of just push through. It's like maybe it's just nerves or you just keep going. And so I think that's what I was healing and what I have healed, being a therapist and being in therapy myself.
Yeah. Right. I always feel like as therapists, we end up in that line of work because there's a number of things about ourselves that we're trying to make sense of.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I think for me, like I didn't even think about this question. Like it just came up just based on the conversation. I think for me was to gain a deeper understanding of myself and knowing exactly how to express my emotions.
Right.
Based on my experience treating Black men and mainly within a couple's framework, Black men tend to struggle with labeling their emotions.
Of course, I see that.
We don't have the words.
But I think you're not really ever taught how to do that, right?
Yes, but also like we're comfortable with three emotions: happy, sad, and angry. Exactly. Anger speaks to our macho-ness, right?
Exactly.
Sadness also can speak to our macho-ness, right? And happy, which is a universal feeling. Right. While a woman has the ability to feel a lot more emotions and express that. So one of the reasons why most men are bad at listening is because when certain feelings come up, we become very uncomfortable.
Right.
Because we can't sit with it.
Right.
So we need to resolve it as quickly as possible because we feel responsible for our partner's feelings. But what I have found is when I'm challenging Black men to say, I am feeling, and here's the status quo, Wolf. I feel like. And a lot of times I'm like, not like, let's remove the like.
Right.
Include that feeling. I feel what?
Right.
It would take these men at least 30 seconds to be able to identify what that emotion is. And once they do, that's when the breakthrough starts.
Right. Then it clicks because they can put words to what they've been feeling.
And the tears follow, right? For the first time ever in their life, oh shit, I can really express how I feel.
Right.
I can say, hey, I've been feeling invisible to you lately.
Right.
I've been feeling unprioritized in this relationship.
Right.
I feel invisible due to my behaviors not being recognized in the household. I do a number of things, but I'm barely applauded for that.
Right. Right.
And when they start saying that, and they keep going.
Because that's key.
Yeah.
Because what happens is sometimes you have all those feelings and then you just shut down. And then your partner's thinking, for Black men, the partner's probably thinking, well, you just don't want to talk about it. Or you just always shut down. Or you just don't communicate. Or you're bad at communicating. And sometimes it's not that. It's that they literally can't put the feelings into words. So it's not that they don't want to talk. They don't know how. They don't know how to identify it. And once you make that connection, floodgates open.
The keyword is acting out. Right. A lot of times when I'm working with female clients and they'll say, well, he's not talking or he's not expressing himself. I'm like, okay, is he acting out? Yes. What is he doing? Right. Because when you think about it, when a child is acting out, this is a child that's communicating something to you, but not using their words.
Right.
Right. So they tend to say, you know what? He's been sleeping on the couch. He's not talking much. He's isolating himself.
Right.
Okay. Now put that into emotions. What might he be feeling in order to be behaving this way?
Right.
And that's where that clicks as well.
Right.
Right. It's learning to understand the behaviors and not what's just being verbally communicated.
Exactly. Really takes you knowing your partner to be able to understand that in a different way.
Yeah. And the term I like for that is attunement. I'm so attuned to my partner's emotions and world that I know how they're feeling before they're even aware of it.
Exactly.
Just this week, my wife's like, I'm getting my cycle next Wednesday. Like, no, you're not. She's like, yes, I am. You want to bet? I'm like, go to the bathroom right now. Came back. How did you know?
I hate when you say that too.
How did
because
you know?
My fiance had done that before. And before we would always go back and forth. And I'm like, you don't know my body. I got this. But he's right.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know it before you even know it. He's like, I can tell a week before that this is going to happen because he can see the differences in my actions. My behavior is different. My mood is slightly different. And for me, I'm like, no, I don't know what you've been talking about. This is normal. I feel great. Nothing's changed. But like you said, he's in tune with me in a way where he can see that before I can see it sometimes. Yeah. Which at first really throws you off because it's like, well, you know me a little too well.
It's paying attention. Shout out to my king, Jay, paying attention.
Right.
That's amazing. A question that I get a lot that I have answered, but I would love to hear your perspective on it.
Okay.
How do I get my man to go to therapy?
Talking about therapy. I'll say for me, and how I got my fiance to go to therapy outside of me being a therapist.
Is going to therapy too? Yeah. Oh my God. So
normalizing it across the board.
Household.
Yeah, we're healing over here. It's just normalizing it, I think, across the board and being able to talk about it and being able to, when we talk about, as you said, changing the culture and removing the stigma, I think that's bigger than what we focus on doing it on the social media level, right? Because it's a buzzword on social media, Instagram, Twitter, we're talking about it, you're hearing it in songs. But outside of that, it's are we really doing the work, underneath that? And so I think for me, a lot of it was, also modeling that in a sense where he could see that I was really doing the work outside of that, right? Yes, I talk about therapy, but I refer to this Beyonce song, the line in the song a lot, I'm part of the Bay High where she goes, and I'm not just preaching, I'm taking my own advice. Ooh. And that was so important for me because I used to think like that too. Yes, I can't just be talking about therapy, but I'm also doing the work. And I think when he started to really just see the shift in me as well and being able to talk and, share what it is and normalize it on that sense, it opened it up for us to then start having deeper conversations as well. And for him to say, you know what, let me just give this a try. Let me see what it's like. So I think in getting your partner, a lot of it is being able to talk about it in a sense of like in that healing and helpful, and not labeling it in the sense like, you know, with those other buzzwords like you're a narcissist or you're toxic or you got to do this, because then I think we're weaponizing therapy, which I think then, you know, in relationships sometimes puts you off of it, because it's like you get in an argument and then it's like, well, you need to go to therapy. And that's not really the best way to do it. But it's outside of that. Just like, you know, this is what I think therapy will help for. In different moments where you're having like these intimate conversations and making it a normal part of the conversation. I think sometimes we switch normalizing it with weaponizing it, and we use it in those areas.
I agree.
And I think that takes away from the value of it and puts people off a bit more.
100%. Right? It's not just talking about it, but it's also doing it.
Right.
And I do think that for men in general, one of our biggest hurdle is making that first initial appointment.
Right.
Reaching out. So a lot of times what I would ask for the partners to do is to identify exactly what steps need to be taken and which one that you could do yourself.
Right.
Since I've been in my relationship for 10 years, I don't think I've ever scheduled a doctor's appointment myself or filled out a paperwork in those 10 years.
Oh, filled out. That's just something I think that women sometimes do. You know, you're even on the flight and they're like handing like the customs form, and he's just like handing it over to me, and then she's just like filling it out.
And I got the bags.
Right, exactly.
So it's the same concept here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's finding 3 therapists and reviewing each of them with him, right? It's making that appointment. It's reminding them and putting it on their schedule that you have an appointment for that day. My mindset is once you get him to show up, then it's my job to keep him engaged, right? Which is why rapport and engagement is such a needed skill in this work.
It is.
Right? As therapists, we need to be able to create that relationship very quickly.
Right.
And create that safety very quickly and early on.
First session, consultation, really.
100%.
Really.
Okay, what are your goals? What are we trying to accomplish? Here's how I can meet them.
Right.
And are you ready to go?
Exactly. And I think what you said is also a key point, especially with men in relationships with women or in relationships with a primary partner, in that sense that a lot of times they aren't making those appointments, right? So that is helpful. And I've had several sessions with women myself too who are like, I need, you know, my guy to get into therapy. And so they're like running through the list and we're getting like sites. And then they're like, I'm going to present, you know, I don't want to hit him with like a database or like so many, because it could just be, how does he choose? How does he do that?
Yeah.
But in knowing your partner, maybe even knowing who, you know, they may feel more comfortable with, what sort of they're looking for, and then helping them just sit down and talk about it. Also not separating in that sense, like, well, you need to be in therapy and you just got to figure that out on your own. Because in couples, in relationships, we're figuring it out together.
Exactly. And that's where social media is so important, because a lot of times, like, I will get clients, but they've already gone through my social media.
Right.
They have an understanding of my personality and who I am.
Right.
I would get that a lot. I'm like, so how did you find me?
Right.
Just doing some market research. Oh yeah, I found your name. I heard you on this podcast. Then I went on your Instagram, and I love everything you say, and I feel like you would be amazing for us. Right. Which is incredible. So I do think that. Now I'm looking at you.
I know you're looking at me.
All therapists should have an active social media page to some degree.
We're working on it.
To some degree.
We're working on it.
And secondly, I'm also talking to myself. Answer all of the emails, answer all of the DMs, return the phone calls that you have promised.
Right.
Because a lot of times when they reach out and we fail to respond in an effective time frame, we now have turned them off to the idea of therapy, to the experience of therapy. And we need to start taking more responsibility as professionals, as business owners, to run a better business. Right. I hired an assistant.
Did you?
With all of these emails and DMs that I be getting, it gets overwhelming.
It is. I always say I need to get an assistant between consultation calls and emails. It's like, I'm working on the Instagram, but I got a few listings out there, you know, where they call, they read up this, they get a feel for it.
I don't have one.
An assistant is really good. Really?
I'm not on Psychology Today. I'm not on Therapy for Black Men. I'm on none of those sites. The last one that reached out to me saying, hey, we want you. I'm like, great. I will charge you this amount to have me listed.
Yeah.
Why am I paying to be listed on your directory?
Right. Okay.
And you're getting ad sales and all of that, but I get none of that.
Right.
But my name being there and my liking is being used to promote your directory.
Well, let's see. That would make sense. I'm on therapy for Black girls, and I get a lot of clients there. Men too, who also find you on there because they feel like the directory is a bit bigger. So, and then other than that, I guess like word of mouth. But we're gonna Instagram or that's like the New Year goal.
I would say for this year, 90% of my clients, I'll say 80% came from social media.
Okay.
20% was word of mouth. My last 12 couples were all referred to me by other clients and other therapists.
Right.
So shout out to all my therapists out there.
That's
thank you for keeping the lights on in in my household, and thank you as well because you sent me a few.
Yeah, thank you. Shout out to all the other therapists, you as well, and my clients who are like talking about me in spaces that I don't know. They don't tell me that they're referring me, but then they'll, I'll get someone else to say, "Oh, my client or you're my friend or so saw you or this person told me about you and it was great." And I'm like, I appreciate it.
Can you tell us the story of a client that changed your life?
Oh boy, yeah.
That you learned the most from? Because as therapists, we also learn a lot from our clients.
I think it's bits and pieces, I would say, in like many clients, because I think that as therapists, even when you're connecting with the client and the rapport, there's also something that on some level you can see or relate to. I don't know if you've had this experience, maybe even in couples, individual, where you can get like a client and they trigger like different parts of you, or you can almost like see difference, learn things about yourself through their session and then helping them. And it feels so tough because I can think of like a few.
Choose one.
I can think of a few
Choose
like
one.
for individual, but
Which
I can
one
also
changed your
think of
life?
like, okay, I could think of a couple that I saw that I would say changed things, like for me, and even in my relationship, because I felt like I was able to see me and my partner in that relationship and in what was coming up, and oddly sort of like relating to it in a different way. And I feel like that changed because what they were like sort of the discussions they were having or what they were trying to navigate or go through felt like things that we had also tried to navigate or go through and weren't quite sure on. And then in me talking with them about it, it almost felt like in a way I was also being the therapist for my own relationship.
You're helping them, but you're also helping yourself.
Exactly. So then outside of that, I would be able to like leave those sessions and then like I can go back and talk to Jason about it. And it feels like now what I'm taking from them, like they're teaching me too, I'm now implementing here.
Exactly.
And I feel like that was also a breakthrough for us because it's like we were both relationships simultaneously were going and healing in their own ways and navigating what they needed to do without even recognizing. And I think I get that a lot from couples. And I think that's something that's really good. But even in seeing individuals, I think that's when you know like you're aligned with who you're working with, because I learn a lot about myself, I think, in those sessions. I think a lot of it even triggers different areas or things like I need to even work through, like, and seeing what's coming up.
I get that a lot. Sometimes I would walk to my wife like, I'm sorry. She's like, what are you apologizing for? I don't know. But I'm sorry.
Because you can feel something in helping them like, oh yeah, I probably maybe have done that too, or I've been thinking about that.
Yeah. Or even ask, hey, do you feel this way?
Right.
Hey, have you ever felt this way?
Right.
Have you ever felt unsafe with me?
Right.
And have that conversation just based on the session that you just had.
Exactly.
It's amazing to see.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, on the flip side, which clients had you pulling your hair out?
Oh, boy. I think it's so tough because therapy is a process, but I like to identify my ideal client as people, a person who's ready to do the work. Right? And so I'm very much not only focused on solutions. I don't want to like deem myself like just like a solution-oriented therapist in that sense. But I do feel like we need to be at some point making progress. Yeah. And so I feel like the clients who have me pulling my hair out, the clients who are wanting to on some level, but we can't break through. Like they're not also doing the work. And I think on some level, telling themselves too that they're doing the work just by being there, which just is part of it.
Yeah.
But if you're just being present but not fully engaged or open, then it's not. And so I feel like those are the ones, because I feel like we're just like, we can't get to that next level. And they're not helping me get there or not letting me in enough. And so we're just back and forth. And then you have the ones who sometimes, you're helping them, you're getting there. And then they come back the following week, they did the complete opposite. And it's like, well, I know because we spent like 6 hours on this. And they're like, well, I should have done that. And, you're right. And so now they want to restart it because now they've learned that, okay, like what you were saying actually makes sense. And so let's go back and do that. And it's like, well, I could have saved you. Like, what we got to reprocess now.
Yeah.
If you, because I know what I'm doing.
You're not going to like what I have to say. As we know, right? Doctors makes the worst patients.
Of course.
The truth. It's also true about therapists. We make the worst clients.
Right.
As of today, on record, on Ménage À Mind, I'm going to say it.
Okay.
If you are in a relationship and one of the partners is a therapist, I will not work with you again. I'm done. I am done. I am done. Done.
Because it's hard for them to sit on the other side.
Relax. You came to me.
You've got your style.
This
I've
is
got
what I
mine.
do.
Yeah.
You came, you sought me out, you did your research, you determined I'm the best person for the job.
Right.
Let me do my job.
Right.
Do not tell me what you think I should do.
Right.
Don't tell me what you think the problem is and how to fix it. You came to me to do the work. Allow me to do the work.
Right.
And here's my biggest issue. If me as a therapist, you can't allow me to influence you and lead you the right way, how much influence are you allowing your partner?
None.
When your partner speaks, how much attention are you being given to what they have to say and their perspective?
None. They're likely not doing it at all.
If you can't even respect my position, you're paying me. You're not paying your partner.
Right.
So if I can influence, if I can give you feedback, if I can hold you accountable, if I can't share what my assessment is, you're rejecting it and going with yours. What is happening behind closed doors?
Right. And see, that's interesting because I haven't had any therapists as partners in couples I've seen, but I've seen therapists individually, just individual therapists.
I've
and
had
I
no
feel like
issue with
that's
that.
different. I can imagine and see the dynamic you're seeing come up in a relationship, which is, I'm almost certain, mimicking what's coming up in their relationship.
You have to be able to self-reflect. You have to be able to take a step back and allow yourself to be taught, coached, or led accordingly. Right? I'm looking at the assessment. I'm like, okay, so these are the things that we got to do to get you guys to a better space. No, it's not. We need to do this and do this and do this.
Are they also couples therapists?
No.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But us therapists, we all have our own theoretical approach on how we would resolve things if a client was in front of us.
Right.
But you have to suspend all of that.
But you're not the therapist in that situation. You've got to sit back, take that therapy hat off, and now show up as the client.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I don't think I would be able. That's tough.
I tried.
That's tough.
I tried.
It's almost like a competition between you and your client. Who's going to be like the therapist?
And we needed to go offline and have that conversation. Like, hey, you are affecting the work that's being done. And it's very apparent.
Right.
And I also think that me being a male therapist was very triggering due to past experiences and etc. So I referred them to another therapist who's going to process more and it will more match the style that is being desired.
Okay.
But I don't think I will ever
That's it for you.
I'm done.
If you're a therapist in a couple,
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Right.
We would need to sit down first and establish some ground rules.
Right.
And if they are broken, I will exit.
Right.
Simple as that.
Right. Because if not, they're not allowing you to really help. You're not able to do your job, essentially. And it's not a competition.
Yeah. Now, we're transitioning real quick.
Okay.
How do we recruit more Black male and female therapists? There's only 4% of us, and that's not enough. By the end of 2024, the Black and brown race is going to be the majority.
It is.
Right? So, and the concept of mental health is rising, and the need for it is rising. The demand for it is increasing.
Right.
How can we recruit more of us to do this work? How else can we make being a therapist look sexy?
I think, again, when we're going back to like social...
And therapy is sexy, by the way. And being a therapist
fun.
is sexy and fun.
And fun.
I have a blast.
I think that it goes back to needing it to, again, maybe with social media, promoting it more, talking about it more, sharing it more, for others to really just understand, like, yes, if we can't always say that we want our communities to be in therapy, but not have enough therapists that look like them, because that also shapes the therapeutic experience, right? I'm a little stumped on how to get more in, although I think definitely more, especially Black male therapists. I think I've mentioned to you before, we
need
we met in grad
more.
school. I think you were like one of the only guys. It was not an all girls school, but technically, because no one else
wanted
to
that
be
graduated within my class.
No one else wanted to be a male therapist. And I recognize even that when I think about it now, even in talking with like other friends or so, and it's like, I don't really know any other Black male therapists outside of you. It's like, I don't
in New
know
York,
how to sort of
there's
like
a number of
pull...
us. Got Aaron Mueller.
Okay.
You have Earl O'Brien.
Okay.
You have Marcel Crooks.
I've heard of him.
Canal Bernard, my guy.
Okay.
I should know more, right? Is there more?
Is
Adrian Johnson, I may be getting
but
his
I don't
last
know.
name
And
wrong.
maybe because
Adrian.
I'm not, like you said on the Instagram.
I'll be looking for
I don't,
my brothers. I'll be looking
I
for
don't
them.
know.
And when I see them, I'm like, yo, come here, man.
I don't know if we got to start like recruiting at colleges or what the situation is or what, that looks like. My sister's in college now, her last year, pursuing a psychology degree.
Ooh.
And even in her...
Jump right into the family business. I am hoping that my girls become therapists.
Isn't it nice? I mean, I try not to tell my sister this too much because I don't want her to think I'm too excited. But I'm low-key, like, my inner child is, like, screaming. Like, I'm just so excited because I think that that's so important, in doing that. And you have two girls. And imagine in that family business and being able to not, again, just change the culture, but even really starting at home, right? When we talk about, like, tradition.
Starting from zero.
Exactly.
Everything is built.
Exactly.
It's plug and play.
Exactly.
It's plug and play, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
if like one of the best ways that as a community that we can build wealth is through more family business. Mm-hmm. So if I could hire my girls to eventually work in my practice and eventually run my practice, why not?
Why not?
You ain't got to work with nobody else. You ain't got to experience the microaggressions
that we've had to experience. That's how I view it with my sister. I'm like, that's great.
Do you know what it's like to being the sole Black male therapist in a space that's flooded with other women, and you're the only male?
Yeah,
it's scary. Comments are coming at you left and right, but you can't say nothing.
Right, because it's also work.
Exactly. Right. Conversations are taking place around you about all type of topics. But you can't say nothing.
Right.
Because the minute they say, hey, this comment was offensive someone felt negatively about it, the stigma of already being a male, on top of that, you add Black and me that's allowed. And when I'm around, I'm around. Oh, man. Navigating that for a number of years was very tough for me.
Right.
Very, very tough for me. In a lot of spaces, I felt that I was being misjudged and mischaracterized, even though to me it was not true.
Right.
The rules were different for me.
Right.
So which is why now in private practice, I'm loving it.
Right.
I'm loving it.
Because you can do your own thing.
Exactly.
You can take up space.
Oh, my office is dope. I have a couch there. I take nap in between sessions. I just added a TV with my PS5 because Modern Warfare just dropped.
Oh boy!
So in between sessions, I'm online. I'm playing video games. It's excellent. It's amazing.
That's me in between sessions, making my little lattes, watching Netflix, relaxing. I love it. I think like the private practice lane has been like one of the best things for me.
So why are you moving from insurance? Are we doing a disservice to our people by not requesting strictly cash payment?
By not requesting it?
No, by solely requesting cash payments.
I think that's where I struggle because I think that insurance and mental health, like we're in a mental health crisis and insurance companies do not understand.
Nope.
They're not able to keep up. And I think that, we've done a lot of work around like removing the stigma from therapy and mental health, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done, especially on the insurance end. So when we say, are we doing a disservice? I mean, I hope not. But I also don't know how much of the responsibility for the insurance companies, to sort of understand and move forward, is that also to, rest on our shoulders, right? Like, how much do we sacrifice because the insurance companies haven't caught up to what's actually needed and what's happening?
Yeah, I agree. The way that I see it is, there's Toyotas, there's Nissans, there's BMs, there's Benz, there's Murcielagos, there's Tesla, right? There's things that fits every budget.
Right, exactly.
Right? So my mindset is, if I do get to a point where I move strictly off cash pay and I have a higher price, doesn't mean that there's not others that could serve the community.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I also think that based on the work that we do, based on the education that we have, based on the qualifications that we've obtained and have invested in ourselves, it's also the service to ourselves and to our family to be working below our wages.
Exactly.
Right. Because eventually we grow resentment for ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that shifts also how you show up for work.
Correct.
Right? Because if you're resenting what you're not able to do or not having, or how you're sort of like lowering what you know is your worth and what you're providing, then how you show up over time, that shifts too. It's natural. It's a natural human emotion.
Honestly, I have felt a lot of guilt at first for my price. Right? I know if I just saying yesterday's price is not tomorrow's. It's not today's price.
Yeah.
But I feel like for the past 2 years, my price has been my price because it directly references my value.
Right.
So I don't need to feel like, oh, I did this, now I need to raise my price. No,
Right.
I've been charging my value for a significant amount of time.
Right.
But prior to doing that, I did experience a lot of guilt.
Right.
And a lot of clients have tried to guilt me, saying, why are you charging this much?
Really?
It is not fair. We're trying to work on our relationship and we can afford you. Now we're going to break up because of you.
Wow.
You're breaking relationships.
Wow.
I've had all of those calls.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah. Why don't you take my insurance? Why don't you take this insurance? This is not fair. You guys are trying to help, but you're not really helping.
Right. Wow.
I've
that's
experienced
tough.
all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it. I understand it. Right. But at the same time, I do know what I provide. I do know what my skill set is.
Right.
I do know in 4 to 5 months, I can turn your relationship around.
Right. Right.
And that's priceless.
Right.
And I
Right.
do know the amount of work, money, and time that has gone into my training.
Right.
Right. It's like saying to a photographer, I'm going to pay you $30 for a photography session.
Yeah.
Do you know how much these lens cost?
Right.
Do you know how much time I spent on the body of
So
this
it's like
camera?
$30, and then you're gonna turn around and ask them to shoot your wedding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
And
like what you're
edit it
saying.
in the next 5 minutes.
Right.
No, it's a skill-based
Right.
profession.
But I think that's also sometimes what people don't understand. I don't think that they also recognize that it's not like you just wake up and decide to be a therapist.
No.
There's a lot of work that you put into that. There's literally time, hours, like
Yes.
even after school, you know, when we
Yes.
think about those 3,000 hours before you could even start seeing clients, getting your license. Like it's a lot of time. It's a mental commitment, physical investment.
Finding your style, finding
Figuring
your niche,
that out.
creating your own style,
Right.
right? Your toolbox,
Right.
developing that, owning that.
And that doesn't just stop once you're licensed as
No.
a therapist. That's something we're constantly doing.
That's where it begins.
Evolving and changing,
Yeah.
finding our style, getting with like aligned clients, identifying like your niche. All of that stuff we're always doing.
Yeah. Becoming a therapist is easy. Being a therapist is difficult.
Right.
Now that's the challenge.
Right.
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 Could you actually serve the people that are sitting in front of you?
Right.
Can you actually help them reach their goals? Can you
Right.
engage them for them to come back?
Right.
Right. Can you deal with insurance? These phone calls that take hours to approve one claim.
Right.
Sometimes we're going 3 months without being paid.
Right.
Right.
And less even and still significantly less than your actual rate.
Exactly.
So you're still already doing that. Right? Because
Exactly.
insurance is never going to really pay your rate.
Yes, and couples therapy is not covered under insurance.
It's not.
So I want people to know that. Couples therapy is not covered under your insurance coverage.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
Which is why 99% of therapists charge cash
Right.
for couples therapy.
Right.
It's a lot of work. It's a
It's
lot
a lot
of
of
work.
work. It is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
And
work.
insurance does not cover it.
Right. And that's also clear to make, too, that the work and the distinction is different. Because I think people think, well, therapy, individual couples, it's very different sitting across from one person and then putting two different personalities, opening the door to someone's relationship, experiencing their dynamic. That's a lot of work. Those couple sessions, you walk away and you're like, I need a minute.
I added a wine fridge to my office. Because after some sessions, you just want to pour yourself a drink.
I keep the wine stocked.
Yeah, and not leave your office, because once you leave the office, the wife's like, here's your child. So you still remain in your office because it's your space.
I've had some times like that. After work, the doors close and I'm just like watching a show or I'm just like relaxing. I don't even have it to like engage just yet.
How do you nurture yourself?
You know, I'm big on like the soft life movement.
The softest life.
The softest life is the life that I'm after. How I nurture myself, I take space for myself as much as I can. You know, I set things up that I enjoy, whether it be like a workout class, a massage. I love to travel. I don't do it as much as I like.
Yes, you do.
I don't do it as much as I like. But that's really how I pour back into myself. Quiet time. I like to cook myself a good meal. Just whatever it is that I feel like just allows me to like relax or like reset. I like to do a lot of that. And what I've had to learn is to be able to do a lot of that without feeling guilty about it.
And while creating the time for it.
Exactly. But prioritizing the time for it has been most important, because sometimes what I think I've done is I haven't really seen it as a priority, or I've sort of sacrificed that. And I learned quickly, you know, that I can't really continue to do that.
Yeah. And that's becoming my biggest challenge heading into the new year. The amount of people that are reaching out and me wanting to work with as many people as possible, my schedule is no longer allowing that.
Right.
My time is taken.
Right.
And people that I've been working with are not looking to transition anytime soon.
And that's the tough part too, I think, as therapists, where you don't understand, you get to a point where your schedule is full.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and
well,
I'm
what
looking
now?
at it. I'm looking at it. And I have 7 consultation calls. I'm like, I can't. I get the sad stories. The guilt trip starts.
I do. And then I get people who want to be put on a waiting list.
We need you.
Which I don't really like to keep a waiting list.
Exactly.
Because with my set clients, sometimes I can tell, or we can see, they're not looking to move. And it's like, then I feel like I'm doing you disservice, because I don't know how long you could be waiting, or I don't know when a time will open up. And then it's like, do I sacrifice that downtime, right? And nurturing yourself to fill your schedule and then risk potentially burning out?
And for relationships, it's even worse, right? If I say, okay, 4 weeks from now, we can start.
You don't know where they're going to be in 4 weeks, right? We don't know where they're going to be in 4 weeks. That couple may have 1 week left before
in 4 weeks, they might be
turn things
divorced.
around. You don't know.
I've had a client say to me, hey, in 2 weeks, I more than likely will leave.
Yeah.
So if we don't start now, we might not make it.
But I think and with couples therapy too, I think that's the difficult part, because, well, at least for me, and I know you see more couples than I do, but I've got couples who have come and they're like, this is like it. It's either we do therapy and this works, or we're already like, we're separated.
I always ask, have you contacted a lawyer? Have you already thought about divorce? Have you already looked out apartments? Do you have an exit plan? Are you 1 foot in on
what
1 foot out?
Doing?
And if you are, I'm going to ask you to get back in your house and lock the door and sit on the couch in your living room. And you're going to commit to me for the next 6 months that you're going to give this 100%.
And give us some time.
And follow through on the homework.
Right.
That's my biggest pet peeve. The homework is created to keep you afloat until the next time I see you next week.
But if you're not doing it, we're resetting every single session. It's like we're resetting.
A fight. I can't keep processing fights for 12 weeks straight.
Right, because we're not making any progress.
Exactly, because you're not doing the homework.
But people get therapy like that confused too. And I think that even in individual therapy, once it starts to get good or you're feeling great, it's like, okay, now I'm done. I'm fixed. I don't need therapy. And what I find is that when you're not in the height of conflict, that's when the real work begins. Because when you're...
Pause. Repeat that again.
Right. When you're not in the height of conflict, that's when the real work begins.
Did you guys catch that? It's not when you're in crisis mode.
Exactly.
It's not when you're trying to survive.
Exactly.
When you get back on land, that's where the work begins.
Right, because that's how we can help you not get to that space again.
Exactly.
When you're in crisis mode, we're just solving the crisis. We got to put the fire out.
That's easy.
That's the easy stuff to do.
Correct.
But if every time we put that fire out, you go ghost, or you decide you need to take a break, and then you don't do that work once we've already put the fire out, then we're just constantly doing that. And we're never really able to give you the tools to actually do the work that as therapists we want to do so that you can stop, finding yourself in this cycle.
Yeah. And part of the work that I also needed to get better at this year was making sure that my couples were not becoming too dependent on me. Not waiting for therapy to talk about the things that you've been wanting to talk about all week. I would find when it's close to termination, the relationship gets worse. Like, where's all the skills that you guys were killing
that you were doing
for the past 4 months?
Right.
Where's the communication?
Right.
Where's the intimacy?
Right.
Where's the friendship?
Right.
And it's due to that fear that, we're by ourselves now.
Then what?
And what's going? Yeah.
We don't have that accountability partner. I just had that conversation with a friend of mine who was asking me about therapy and how it works. And I was telling her, I said, as a therapist, I said, yes, I think that therapy is important and something that I think everyone should do at some point. But I don't think it's something that you do consistently forever. Right? Meaning, and when I say that, I mean, I don't think like you find a therapist and now I'm seeing this therapist every week for the rest of my life, like indefinitely. Yeah. And I think that what you said, that's also something that people have to understand. And when I say, earlier, as I said, with the aligned client and people wanting to do the work, that's important. I don't want clients to become dependent on me, because then what that means is I'm not effectively giving you the tools to do the work. And so that you can only do it either in individual sessions or in couples therapy with me there. Yeah. And I'm not going to be sitting with you for the rest of your life. So at some point the sessions are going to end. And I want to know that I was able to help you where you're okay. You're good now. You can go off and be happy, live your life. And I need
to create space for those that are in crisis that are coming in.
Exactly.
And I got to remind that to my couples a lot of times.
Exactly.
It's been 6 months. You guys' relationship is doing incredible. Here's our first assessment. Here's the latest one. Here's your communication skills. Here's what I've assessed. You guys are good.
Right.
Now let's move into one monthly session. Mac, you trying to get rid of us? It's
that's
like
what they
a
say.
Breakup.
Yeah, it's really like a breakup.
Oh, it's not you, it's me? Like you're leaving me? Like it's a breakup. I'm like,
it really is like a breakup. Yeah. And it's so hard. And then you feel guilty because then you feel like, well, I've noticed that you're making progress. I'm trying to advance you, almost like graduate you to the next step, but they don't want that.
Yeah. And also at times like you start working with a client and you just like them so much that you don't want to stop seeing them.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would
like
have
almost like your favorites or something.
You know what I'm saying? So in some sessions I'm like, we spoke about nothing for the last 90 minutes.
And I think those are the hardest because then when you see the progress with those clients and it's time for them to like move forward, it's like
do I want to start over?
We're like this session is easy. Like, I'm getting up. I could just like relax. I'm breezing through this.
Oh man. Hey man, this has been about behind what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say behind access, but
like behind the scenes.
This is a behind the scenes of what it's like to actually be a black male or black female therapist that's directly serves the black community. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out for being present here today. I'm glad that you came outside. And as I told you, it's not going to be as scary as you thought.
It's not. This was fun. I liked it.
Yeah. So thank you again. I appreciate you. Can you tell the people where they can find you if you have room in your schedule?
Oh, boy. Because this is where I feel like I should plug like my therapy Instagram.
Go ahead, girl.
But I don't have a therapy Instagram. But you can find me on Therapy for Black Girls, or if you Google Takira Victorin, I will come up. I offer a free 15-minute consultation if I have room, so feel free. Yeah, free. 15 minutes on the phone.
You got to start charging for that.
Oh, okay. I mean,
talk about that offline.
Yes, I offer a free 15-minute consultation, so feel free to send me an email, book a link, and let's work.
Nice. And as you guys know, I am Max Stanley. Do I ever say my last name? I feel like my name... I've been Stanley my whole life. So my parents call me Stanley.
Okay.
Those that have known me since childhood have called me Stanley.
Yeah.
Then I met my girlfriend. Then she's like, I don't like Stanley. I like Mac better. And Mac has become my
And now
name.
that's like your name.
Yeah, people look.
Mac is like your first name now. Your new first name.
Yeah.
I only know Stanley like from school. But then it's like Mac is like actually your name.
I hold a special place for those that still call me Stanley because it showed that they've known me from a previous time. And I appreciate those more. Like the whole I feel like Mac and Stanley are also very different. But
True.
but
Okay.
nonetheless, I'm Mac. I am a licensed mental health counselor with a specialization in couples therapy. Primarily serves Black couple. You cannot find me anywhere because I'm not listed anywhere. And
True.
I honestly don't. I think my 2023 is already spoken for in terms of clientele.
And clientele. It is. But that's why we need more
Yeah.
therapists.
And I think that I also need to do a better job of introducing more Black male therapists and just take on a more hands-on approach of mentoring a few more and things like that. I mean, I've done 2 episodes, they've all been with Black female therapists, so maybe I need to look at myself and ensure that the next few episodes I include my brothers
Maybe
in it,
it'll
so
be
we could be
helpful.
seen.
Because you listed a few, and I don't. I feel like I'm embarrassed. I don't know who they are. I gotta connect and maybe do a bit more networking as well.
Agreed. Thank you, and see you guys on the next episode.
On the next episode of Ménage À Mind.
Well, was it full-on penetration?
Richard Gere actually showed me how to treat women.
Even though she was a prostitute, right? She was being treated positively.